Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a cast iron plant. This is a shade-loving evergreen cast iron plant. This is about as tall as a cast iron plant will get. It's right at maybe 2.5 feet tall. That's about all the growth and height I'm going to get out of this. It spreads by rhizome under the ground very slowly. Not something you need to worry about. If it got a little wider than you want it, you can just cut these individual pieces off at the base with a shovel. It's really no big deal. Super slow to spread, but it can end up 3 or 4 feet wide over time. Cast iron plants are hardy in zones 6 to 11. The primary use for a cast iron plant is naturalizing in a wooded space. These things are great at competing with other plants, tree roots. This tree that's over here, these screening plants I have back here are well established. These will have no problem at all competing with those, and they stay evergreen. So most things in a wooded space like that will go dormant in the winter time. So this just gives you a nice evergreen base foundation in a woodland garden. So this is not a plant we're growing for flowers. We're actually growing it for this big, beautiful, dark green foliage, which it keeps all year long and just looks absolutely great naturalized in a wooded space. I have videos on my YouTube channel for planting woody trees and shrubs in different types of situations, clay soils, sandy soils, that kind of thing. I'm not that worried about these cast iron plants at all. They'll compete with anything. I do know that the space I'm putting them in back here, behind where I film in my backyard all the time, tends to stay a little wetter than these would actually like, so I'm going to leave them up quite a bit. You're either going to have dry shade or you're going to have wet shade. I mean, you get one or the other, and if it's a wet, shady space, make sure you're mounding these up quite a bit so they don't end up sitting in water any time of the year. Cast iron plants are super industrial once they're established. Really just not going to have to do a lot of ongoing watering on them if you're in an area that gets normal rainfall. I'm not going to worry about them at all back here. I may never water them again after I watered them initially when I put them in the ground, because I know this area, like I said, stays a little bit moist. If it's an extremely dry shaded space, that first year you definitely want to keep an eye on them. Once they're rooted in, they can compete with almost anything. As long as you have acid soil, I don't think these actually need any additional fertilizer. We fertilize them very lightly in a nursery. You can't really push additional growth on them very quickly, no matter what you do. They just kind of grow at their own pace. I probably will, just because I fertilize most things in the late winter in my yard. I probably will end up putting a small amount of slow release fertilizer on them, just to make sure I keep this really super dark green foliage, which is absolutely beautiful on these things. But that's it. It's going to be a very small amount. I'm going to walk past it, sling a little fertilizer at it, and be done with it. Something that lasts 3 to 4 months would be ideal. This is a plant that really doesn't need any maintenance or any kind of pruning. You'll get a leaf like this occasionally where it's just kind of worn out. You can cut that to the base and get rid of it. There's several on this plant that I could get rid of, and the plant would look a lot fresher. So you could do that once a year. If it gets a little wider than you want over time, you can go and cut those suckers down to the ground or slightly under the ground to get rid of them. There are really very few pest problems on these cast iron plants, but like I said, you could definitely drown this plant. If it's a space you think is going to stay wet at times, make sure you're mounding these up above the grade so they won't end up staying wet. And these are very deer resistant. So what are you waiting for? I'm confident that you can grow a cast iron plant. As long as you put it in a shady space and don't overwater it, you won't have any problems with them. Thank you very much for watching my video, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos.